begin with Australia reprimands Senator for King Charles protest. Biden says no rollback of U.S. clean energy gains ahead of Trump presidency. Delhi closes schools, bars construction due to pollution spike. Broadcaster Alan Jones charged with indecent assault. And Trump defends bold cabinet picks amid uncertain outcomes. Stay with me for these more stories. Australia's Senate has chosen to censure Indigenous lawmaker Lydia Thorpe after she shut down Britain's King Charles III during his visit to Parliament last month. The vote, led by Australia's governing Labour Party, was passed with 46 votes in favour and 6 against. Thorpe, a Gunai, Guditjmara and Japawuran woman who represents the state of Victoria, released a statement before the vote, saying she will not be silenced by the step. The Senate does not have the power to appoint or remove senators, and censure motions, though politically symbolic, do not carry legal weight. Thorpe said in a statement, "I will not be silent. The truth is, this colony is built on stolen land, stolen wealth and stolen lives. The British Crown committed heinous crimes against the first peoples of this country. These crimes include war crimes, crimes against humanity and failure to prevent genocide. The Crown must be held accountable for these crimes," she added. Although Australia has had de facto independence from the United Kingdom since 1901, it remains a realm of the Commonwealth, meaning that King Charles is Australia's head of state. On October 21st, Charles was attending a ceremonial welcome and parliamentary reception at Australia's Parliament House in Canberra when proceedings were briefly interrupted by Thorpe's protests. Recordings of the protests were seen and shared around the world, with the sporadic direct protests against the British monarch sparking consternation from some and celebration from others. After the censure was passed by the Senate on Monday morning, Thorpe ripped the piece of paper it was printed into 2 pieces, according to report. The gesture seemed to be a nod to New Zealand's Tea Party Maori legislator Hannah Rohitsi Maipi-Clark, who last week ripped up a copy of a bill reviewing a treaty that granted land rights to Maori tribes before the beginning of a traditional haka dance in protest. On climate crisis, Joe Biden, United States President, has witnessed the devastation of drought up close as he became the first sitting U.S. president to visit the Amazon rainforest, declaring that nobody can reverse the clean energy revolution that's underway in America. His comments come even as the incoming administration of President-elect Donald Trump is poised to scale back efforts to fight climate change. The huge Amazon region, which is closely the size of Australia, stores massive amounts of the world's carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas driving climate change, but development is rapidly depleting the world's largest tropical rainforests, and rivers are drying up. Biden on Sunday said the fight against climate change has been a defining course of his presidency. He has pushed for cleaner air, water and energy, including legislation that marked the most substantial federal investment in history to fight global warming. But he is about to hand the nation over to Republican Trump, who is highly unlikely to prioritize the Amazon or anything related to climate change, which he has cast as a hoax. Trump has vowed to again pull out of the Paris Agreement, a global treaty forged to avert the threat of catastrophic climate change, and said he will rescind upspent funds in energy efficiency legislation. Biden's journey comes as the United Nations Climate Conference is underway in Azerbaijan. Brazil, which is hosting the conference next year, holds about 2/3 of the Amazon's territory. During a helicopter tour, Biden saw extreme erosion, ships grounded in one of the Amazon River's main tributaries, and fire damage. He also passed over a wildfire refuge for endangered species of monkeys and birds and the expansive waters where the Negro River tributary flows into the Amazon. He was joined by Carlos Naber, a Nobel Prize-winning scientist and expert on how climate change is harming the Amazon. Biden met indigenous leaders and visited a museum at the gateway to the Amazon where indigenous women shook maracas as part of a welcoming ceremony. He then signed a U.S. proclamation designating November 17th as International Conservative Day. Biden's administration announced plans last year for a $500 million contribution to the Amazon Fund, the most significant international cooperation effort to preserve the rainforest, primarily financed by Norway. The U.S. has said it has already provided $50 million as part of that commitment, and the White House announced an additional $50 million on Sunday. More on climate crisis. Authorities in India's capital have closed schools, suspended construction, and stopped non-essential trucks from entering the city after air pollution shot up to its worst level this season. A thick blanket of toxic smoke engulfed most parts of northern India on Monday after dense fog overnight, with the hazardous air quality in some of areas of the National Capital Territory and city of Delhi hitting a fresh high of 1,081, according to Swiss group IQS Life Rankings. Authorities directed all schools in Delhi to move classes online and tighten restrictions on construction operations and vehicle movement, citing efforts to prevent further deterioration of the air quality. Authorities hope by keeping children at home, traffic will be considerably lessened. Physical classes shall be discontinued for all students apart from class 10 and 12, Chief Minister Atishi, who uses only one name, said in a statement late on Sunday. Similar restrictions were adopted last week too. Several in the city cannot afford air filters, nor do they have homes they can effectively seal from the misery of foul-smelling air blamed for thousands of premature deaths every year. Delhi and the surrounding metropolitan area, home to over 30 million people, consistently top all rankings for air pollution in winter. Farm fires where stubble left after harvesting rices burnt to clear fields have contributed as much as 40% of the pollution in Delhi suffer, a weather forecasting agency under the Ministry of Earth Sciences has said. Satellites detected 1,334 such events in 6 Indian states on Sunday, the most in the last 4 days, according to India's Consortium for Research on Agro-Ecosystem Monitoring and Modeling from Space, CREAMS. Despite the polluted air, many residents continue their daily routines. Many structures were barely visible, including New Delhi's iconic India Gate, as visibility dropped to 100 meters, that's 109 yards. Authorities said flights and trains continue to operate with some delays. India's weather department also forecast dense to very dense fog for the northern states of Uttar Pradesh, Haryana and Rajasthan for Monday. Cooler temperatures and slow-moving winds exacerbates the situation by trapping deadly pollutants each winter, stretching from mid-October until at least January. Last month, India's Supreme Court ruled that clean air was a fundamental human right, ordering the central government and state-level authorities to take immediate action. Away from climate crisis, now Australia's veteran broadcaster and ex-rugby coach Alan Jones has been charged with alleged sexual offences covering 2 decades. On Monday, police in the state of New South Wales, NSW, said that Jones had been charged with 24 offences involving 8 alleged victims. The alleged offences, including 11 counts of aggravated indecent assault and 9 counts of assault with act of indecency, took place between 2001 and 2019, NSW police said. Police earlier said they had detained an 83-year-old man who they did not identify at a property in the downtown Sydney neighbourhood of Circular Quay. NSW Police Assistant Commissioner Michael Fitzgerald applauded investigators for their tenacity and hard work. Fitzgerald said police will claim that Jones knew some of the alleged victims personally and some professionally. Jones has been a fixture of Australian broadcasting since the mid-1980s, hosting influential shows on Sydney radio stations 2GB and TUE and the TV network Sky News. He is known for his conservative views. Last sat behind the microphone in November last year while presenting his show on the streaming news channel ADH TV, which he joined after leaving Sky News in late 2021. Before entering broadcasting, Jones worked as a teacher before transitioning into politics to serve as a speechwriter and advisor to then Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser during the late 1970s and early 80s. From 1984 to 1998, Jones was the head coach for the Australian men's rugby union team, leading the side to 86 victories in 102 matches, including a grand slam of victories over England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland. In December, he denied allegations of indecent assault and inappropriate touching after an investigation detailing claims that he had used his position to prey on young men. In a statement at the time, Jones' lawyer described the allegations as scandalous, grossly offensive, and seriously defamatory of him. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is negating to back down over his cabinet picks in the first clash in an epic grapple he will wage against Washington when he takes office next year. The coming days will show whether Matt Gaetz, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. have staying power for confirmation fight in the new Republican Senate over the assignment to safeguard the rule of law, the U.S. intelligence community, the military, and the health and well-being of all Americans. Each of the most provocative selections is facing criticism that they lack the expertise and experience to run the vast, specialized bureaucracies that will be under their control. And debates over their prospects is growing following new revelations and allegations about their pasts, which will set up a test for Trump's intention to wield what he regards as almost uncheckable power from the Oval Office. According to report, Trump's Pick 4 defense secretary paid a woman who accused him of sexual assault in a settlement agreement that included a confidentiality clause, according to Hegseth's attorney. The Fox News anchor has denied assaulting the woman, according to the attorney, and was not charged in any criminal case or named as a defendant in any civil lawsuit in relation with the 2017 incident. The initial sexual assault allegation against Hegseth had caught Trump's team off guard last week after the president-elect had already picked him. Intrigue also deepened over a House Ethics Committee investigation into Gaetz, the potential Attorney General, after a lawyer who represents two of the witnesses in the probe said last Friday that one of his clients saw the Florida Republican who resigned from Congress last week having sex with a minor. Gaetz denies any wrongdoing, including ever having such act with a minor or paying for it. He was not charged after a Department of Justice investigation. There is also rising scrutiny over Gabbard's suitability for the job of the Director of National Intelligence because of her positions that sometimes amplify the propaganda of one of the COVID community's top adversaries, that's Russia. And some senior medical experts are raising concerns over the qualifications of Kennedy, a vaccine skeptic, to safeguard generations of medical advances as the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, even though his outspokenness against processed food has found support among several top physicians. Not all of Trump's picks are causing uproar. The selection of Florida Senator Marco Rubio to serve as Secretary of State has won praise on both sides of the aisle. But in a conventional administration, controversies raging around at least 4 major cabinet picks will be seen as a disaster. Trump is adamant he's not going to give in as he seeks people who will fulfill his aims of tearing down the Washington establishment in a second term he vowed to devote to retribution. On more stories, and in Africa, Gabon approves new constitution, says Interior Minister. According to provisional results published on Sunday, Gabon's military rulers said the latest constitution has been overwhelmingly approved in a referendum. Speaking, the Interior Minister said 91.8% of voters had said yes to the charter, with a turnout estimated at 53.5%. The junta in power, led by interim President Brice Oligui Nguema, has vowed it will be a stepping stone in the transition to democratic rule tentatively planned for the summer of 2025. In a move large welcome by the Gabonese, military officers seized power in a coup in August last year, ousting President Ali Bongo. For closely 60 years, his family had controlled the oil-rich country but left a stagnant economy with a third of the population living in poverty. The proposed new constitution sets a 2-term limit on the presidency, each lasting 7 years, no prime minister, no dynastic transfer of power, and recognizes French as Gabon's working language. It also needs presidential candidates to be exclusively Gabonese, with at least one Gabon-born parent and half a Gabonese spouse. However, the draft does not ban Nguema from running for the presidency, raising concerns for some commentators about the junta's ambitions. The final tally will be announced by the Constitutional Court. Now, Lucky Aiyedatiwa secures Ondo governorship election. But after this timeout, I'll bring you more details on the story and more from Nigeria. Please don't go anywhere. You're welcome now to Zuma Nigeria, and we begin with Lucky Aiyedatiwa secures Ondo governorship win. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has announced the governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress (APC), Lucky Aiyedatiwa, the winner of Ondo State governorship poll. This announcement was made by Olayemi Akinyemi, INEC's returning officer at the Ondo State Collation Center in Akure, the state capital, on Sunday. Akinyemi, who is the Vice-Chancellor at the Federal University of Lokoja, announced that the incumbent governor secured 366,781 votes to defeat the former Deputy Governor Agboola Ajayi of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), who polled 117,845. According to a report earlier, the APC candidate also won in each of the 18 local government areas of Ondo State. The election took place across 3,933 polling units in the 18 local government areas. According to INEC, over 1.7 million permanent voter cards (PVCs) were collected, representing 85.6% of the 2.05 million registered voters in the state. The victory marks Mr. Aiyedatiwa's first governorship win, having assumed office on December 27, 2023, following the death of Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, whom he served under as deputy governor. Ajayi of the PDP was Aiyedatiwa's predecessor as deputy governor under Akeredolu, but a rift between the duo led to his replacement with Aiyedatiwa in 2020. The new leader on Saturday expressed confidence that he is at an advantage to win the election shortly after casting his vote at polling unit 005 Ward 04 in Obenle community. The governor said he will win the election because of his performance in the last 10 months. Both candidates won in their polling units, with Aiyedatiwa winning his with 128 votes, while Ajayi secured only 3 votes there. However, Ajayi recovered in his own unit, winning with 194 votes, whereas Aiyedatiwa garnered just 3 votes. On judicial matters, court holds NBC from fining and sanctioning broadcast stations. The Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has ordered the National Broadcasting Commission (NBC) to stop using the NBC Act and the Nigeria Broadcasting Code to enforce fines, threaten to impose sanctions, harass and intimidate the broadcast stations and other independent media houses in the country. The court declared that the NBC and its agent lacked the legal power and authority to impose penalty unlawfully and unilaterally, including fines, suspension, withdrawal of license, on any form of punishment whatsoever on independent media houses for promoting access to diverse information and issues of public importance. The judgment was delivered in June by Honorable Justice Nicholas Owebo following a lawsuit brought by the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project (SERAP) and Center for Journalism Innovation and Development (CJID). The certified true copy of the judgment was obtained last Friday. The suit followed the decision by the NPC in 2022 to enforce a fine of 5 million naira each on Trust TV, MultiChoice Nigeria Limited, NTA StarTimes Limited and Telcom Satellite Limited over their documentaries on terrorism in the country. The NBC alleged that the documentaries glorify the activities of bandits, undermine national security in Nigeria and contravene the provisions of the Nigeria Broadcasting Code. In his judgment, Justice Owebo held that the issue of the local standing of SERAP and CJID need to be resolved first, being a threshold issue. It is trite that the statement of claim must disclose the plaintiff's interest sufficient to clothe him or her with the requisite capacity to sue. Justice Owebo also stated that SERAP and CJID have been vested with local standing. Looking at the provisions of the Fundamental Rights Enforcement Procedure Rules 2009 and particularly the preambles to the rules, the general requirement of local standing has been done away with. SERAP and CJID are not meddlesome interlopers. He dismissed the objections raised by the NBC's counsel and upheld SERAP's and CJID's arguments. Consequently, the court entered judgment in favor of SERAP and CJID and against the NBC. Justice Owebo's judgment dated 13 June 2024 read in part, "This is an action alleging breach of the fundamental rights of SERAP and CJID to freedom of expression, access to information and media freedom and fair hearing guaranteed under sections 22, 36 and 39 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended." And Finally on the news, Obasanjo calls for credible new INEC leadership reform. Over the weekend, ex-President Olusegun Obasanjo charged the Nigerian people to, as a matter of urgency, ensure the appointment of new and credible partnership and leadership of the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC at all levels for electoral integrity. According to him, the people must make sure that the INEC chairperson and his or her staff were thoroughly vetted, adding that the screening exercise should yield dispassionate, non-partisan actors with impeccable reputations. In his keynote address at the Chinua Achebe Leadership Forum, Yale University, New Haven, Connecticut, USA, Obasanjo, who spoke on the theme Leadership Failure and State Capture in Nigeria, described what was happening in the country at the moment as state capture. The former president, who also claimed that the Nigerian judiciary has been heavily compromised by politicians, declared that justice in the country was now conceded to the highest bidder. Touching on virtually all sectors of the system, Obasanjo maintained that under Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as finance minister, Nigeria's gross domestic product GDP was $510 billion, but has now fell to $199 billion under the Bola Tinubu administration, according to newest figures from the International Monetary Fund, IMF. The ex-Nigerian leader also precisely aimed President Bola Tinubu, even without particularly mentioning his name, but alluded to his Emilokon philosophy and accused him of extending his 25-year hold on Lagos. He also raised concerns over the present state of the Nigerian economy, observing that the feat of a fairly good economy was achieved in the past because of the quality of persons in government. At the local level, he stated that Nigeria should implement and enact clearly defined financial regulations for political campaigns, create effective control and enforcement mechanisms to ensure compliance with financial regulations. Further, he called for the increase of activities to prepare and secure the voting infrastructure, such as safeguarding the technology used to collate, transmit, verify, and disperse election results. Obasanjo maintained that the bimodal voter accreditation system BVAS and the INEC election result viewing portal IREF are two technological innovations that prior to 2023 were celebrated for their promise. According to him, they were to potentially enhance the accuracy and transparency of Nigeria's election results, eliminate the threat of election rigging, and boost public trust in electoral outcomes. A recap of major stories says Australia reprimands Senator for King Charles protest. Biden says no rollback of U.S. clean energy gains ahead of Trump presidency. Delhi closes schools, bars construction due to pollution spike. Broadcaster Alan Jones charged with indecent assault, and Trump defends bold cabinet picks amid uncertain outcomes. And that's all on the news. Thanks for watching. Have a great week ahead.